Trump is defending America's wallets from financial discrimination. And yet, here in Canada, Mark Carney wants to keep your wallet on a leash. Now, Donald Trump is taking a blowtorch to financial censorship. His administration is preparing an executive order that would punish banks for debanking customers based on political, religious, or ideological beliefs. Finally, someone is treating financial discrimination as the civil rights issue that it is. Now let's look at Canada, where Mark Carney, the globalist banker turned climate crusader, is now the leader of the Liberal Party and thus our prime minister. This is the same Mark Carney who made a career out of pushing ESG compliance on banks and insurance companies and central bank control over your money. And he now sits atop the very regime that froze Canadians' bank accounts for protesting COVID lockdowns.
If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. The consequences are real, and they will bite.
And unlike Trump, Carney's Liberals haven't just failed to fix financial censorship, they're still defending it. During the 2022 Freedom Convoy, the Trudeau Liberals invoked the Emergencies Act and, with the help of the big banks, froze the accounts of peaceful protesters and donors.
It gives me no pleasure to impose any of these measures. In fact, we do so with great sorrow. But do not doubt our determination to act, to defend our democracy, to defend our economy, and to restore peace, order, and good government.
Internal government documents shown at the Public Order Emergency Commission into the government's use of a counterterrorism law called the Emergencies Act against peaceful Canadian protesters show just how deep the rot went. And Mark Carney's gang was in it up to their eyeballs. Look at this. We're taking a big reputational hit. But if you list them as people subject to sanctions, as if they are terrorists, we could act swiftly. That's from a bank executive on a call with the feds. That's not a cop, that's not a judge, that's a banker asking the government to label their own customers, peaceful Canadians, as terrorists so they could freeze their bank accounts faster. Why? Because Fox News told people to pull their money out and the banks panicked over the bad PR. That's all it took. Your freedom in exchange for their public image.
Seizing bank accounts and assets. This one guy said that they seized assets of a business that has nothing to do with his trucking business. This is retaliation. How would that settle in this country? Like, what would we do as Americans if the government came after us for exercising, I don't know, our Second Amendment right?
Well, that's why we have a Second Amendment, Joey Jones, exactly. We must send peacekeeping forces to Canada at this point. That's our only recourse.
And there's more. Look at this. In normal times, these measures would be seen as draconian. That was Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister under Justin Trudeau, admitting on a February 13th phone call the day before invoking the Emergencies Act that what they were about to do was authoritarian. But they did it anyway. She even compared the trucker protests to January 6th and Brexit, because nothing terrifies Liberals more than people peacefully demanding their own freedom back.
A direct quote that a Canadian bank CEO was relaying to me that he had heard on an investment trip to the US from someone who he wanted to invest in Canada. He was trying to persuade someone to invest in Canada. And that was a heart-stopping quote for me. That was really a moment when, having already been concerned, when I really understood that what was happening was profoundly jeopardizing the Canadian economy and putting investment in Canada at risk.
But not every banker was on board. And though Mark Carney was not in charge of the Liberal Party at the time, he was indeed urging the Liberal government and the Prime Minister that he was advising to treat the convoy protesters as seditionists and to, quote, follow the money. One brave bank executive dared to speak up. He said, "I'm very concerned about the banking system being seen as a political weapon. We can't politicize the banks. That person urged the government to focus on removing COVID restrictions, not punishing Canadians for opposing them. But that voice was, of course, drowned out by the Carney-Freeland consensus. Dissent equals danger, and your money is a privilege, not a right. And the crackdown? Well, it never ended. Lawyer Eva Chipiuk, representing the convoy organizers, had her RBC account frozen just a few weeks ago in 2025. Years after the emergency lifted. Evan Blackman, a peaceful protester, had his TD accounts frozen in 2022, and now he's suing the government. Farm Credit Canada, a Crown corporation, was caught compiling blacklists of suspected convoy sympathizers even after the emergency was over. And only Scotiabank has apologized. The others, they either stayed silent or urged the feds to go even further using these anti-terrorism finance laws. In 2024, the federal court ruled that invoking the Emergencies Act was unjustified, unconstitutional, and an abuse of power. It violated the charter rights that Canadians use to express themselves, to assemble, and to be free from unreasonable seizure. But has anyone ever been held accountable? Nope, not Freeland, not the banks, and certainly not Mark Carney, who's doubling down on the system that created the financial blacklist in the first place. Meanwhile, in America, Donald Trump is making sure it never happens there. His executive order will target banks that engage in viewpoint-based discrimination. In the US, they're protecting freedom through financial access. In Carney's Canada, they're still pretending you deserve to be punished for protesting the government. If the government and its banker allies can seize your money because of what you believe, are you really even free? Mark Carney wants to run your life through a credit score and a climate dashboard. He already helped design the infrastructure. Now, he's the one holding the keys. In the US, Trump is saying hell no to that sort of dystopia. In Canada, we might just have to get used to it. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. To learn more about Prime Minister Mark Carney's move from global debanker of oil and gas projects to Canada's new Prime Minister, visit thecarneyfiles.com.